Okay, we're live.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the February 26th meeting of the JEDO Board. Call this meeting to order. If Clerk will call the roll, please.
Mayor Padilla.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Kell.
Here.
Councilmember Banks.
Here.
Councilmember Duncan.
Here.
Commissioner Rapon.
Here.
Commissioner Cook.
Here.
And Commissioner Mays.
Here.
Non-voting members, we have Councilmember Hiller. Here. Councilmember Valdivia Acala. Miller. Dobler. And Hofer. Here. All right, so we have 7 voting members present and 2 non-voting members present, so we have 9 present.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to action items, Madam Clerk.
A is approval of an amendment to the JEDO Operational Rules related to virtual meetings.
Okay. Who's making this presentation on this piece?
I can handle that, Mr. Mayor, if you would like.
Thank you very much.
So these are in front of you because at the request of the mayor asked for us to draft some proposed operational rules for your consideration to deal with issues like snow so that we have a clear path forward in case you do want to do a totally virtual meeting in case of emergency. So the proposed change that the mayor has asked for is in redlined, not in front of me in the, oh, sorry, wrong tab. This is what happens when I have a fancy tab. It is in redlined and it is on line 13 of page 1 that talks about how voting has to be, JEDO members have to be physically present at the meeting unless the meeting is being conducted partially or fully virtually. And then it goes down on line 23 through 25, which states the proposed reason why it might be held virtually that the mayor has requested to be introduced. And so this would be in the event of inclement weather conditions or an emergency, the chairperson may make a determination to conduct the meeting partially or fully virtually. So this, the intent of it is truly for those inclement weather events when we have a lot of snow so as to not inconvenience everyone else or the public or have people out in unsafe conditions and the meeting could still go on. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions about the amendment?
None.
Does it limit solely the only way we could do this is if it's just inclement weather conditions? Or does that, or an emergency, does that cover that?
Inclement weather conditions or an emergency, which is not defined, but you guys could make that more specific if you would like. My intent, I would assume, would be what we generally consider emergencies. So a lot of them are weather events, but there might be another emergency, like City Hall randomly is closed because of a gas leak or something, and
Okay.
we had to go virtually.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that would be, yeah, I wouldn't want to get myself any more specific than that, but allow that flexibility. Any questions about the amendment? Is there a motion to approve? Motion to approve by Deputy Mayor Kell and seconded by Commissioner Mays. And do we need to take our roll call if we do it? Okay. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion's carried. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
B is approval of December 11, 2024 JEDO Board meeting minutes.
I take it that everyone's had an opportunity to read those minutes. Is there a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
Motion to accept by Commissioner Cook,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Duncan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Move on to action item C. Madam Clerk?
C is approval of plan to spend the $575,000 in the budget for the redevelopment incentives.
Okay.
Good evening. I don't know if you guys can see on the screen here in a sec. Okay, here we go. Thank you. So in September of JEDO meeting last year, we presented you guys with this framework you see above you here. We discussed it as part of the carry forward amount from the 10%, and we have 3 buckets. As you can see, youth employment, supporting entrepreneurs, and building rehabilitation. Then in December, we came back with, and as part of the overall budget discussion, we also talked about these buckets. And at that meeting, Councilman Duncan requested to pull aside the rehabilitation part of the budget for further discussion and conversations. And over the past few weeks, we had those conversations with Councilwoman Hiller and Councilman Duncan as well. And I'll let them take over to report to you guys what we talked about.
Thank you very much. So yeah, when this last came up, it had a couple parameters already, which was it's a one-time expense, some type of development projects or project, and it needed to be, the goal was to serve it in sort of, or whatever term you want to use, but distressed parts, communities, right? So that was its first focus. But there's some talk with council members and others. We thought, well, that's a good start, but it'd be nice if it was a little more focused as we move forward, so we kind of knew exactly what its purpose was. So sat down with the Go Topeka staff and some others, and one of the areas that there's a gap is some sort of prep assistance for sites. Now, again, this is one-time money. It's only going to go so far, but this could be something as simple as you have to do a study, whether it's a blight study or an environmental study of some kind, to move the project forward before the bank will approve your loan. Or it could be on the far end if you want, I've got a small structure that needs demoed. I didn't build that into my costs. I can't move forward till I get this little structure demoed. So it can run the gamut of site prep in those examples, but those are areas that folks come forward, especially who just don't have that extra resource to do those types of things to move the rest of their project forward. So through that conversation, we thought maybe that's a good purpose for these dollars. And so we don't have any specific projects in mind. Nothing's predetermined. What we do think is if these funds could be allocated for what we'll call a site prep development fund, this would assist these efforts, particularly the small and mid-sized organizations in these areas. We don't have all the details worked out because, to be honest, we weren't going to put all that work in. If you guys said, that's a terrible idea, never mind. But if you said, sounds like a great idea, now you can get into the real nuts and bolts of it. But we can provide you a general sense of how it would work. Anyone would be eligible to apply who meets those criteria. Step one would be not the fees associated with it, but the city of Topeka already has pre-qualifiers that exist through other programs that we administer, right? So we can take those that we think are appropriate to make sure that a project's viable, fill this out, show us your project's actually going to move forward to qualify for this program. That'd be step one. And then from there, Go Topeka could make the determinations as to whether it fits the rest of what the money is intended for and whether the project is something that has met the criteria that's established. Again, these are one-time funds. Maybe if this works and it works the way we hope, if there's ever extra money again, we can have a template for somewhere we could put some dollars as this moves forward. But that's essentially the concept, is that we put it into a site prep development fund to help those little extra costs that add up to just getting your project ready before it's shovel ready, if you will. So that's the very short version of the concept. I'm happy to answer any questions the best I can.
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner?
Mr. Duncan, in building this, though, this is not going to be a City of Topeka program. I want to stress that
Correct.
This is not, even though you're using maybe parameters from the City of Topeka, this is not a City of Topeka program. It is administered 100% through Go Topeka, correct?
Correct. And what Go Topeka said was they like the idea, but they don't always have to do some of those steps of the viability piece, the qualifier piece. And so that's when we said, we have that and we're happy to develop that piece and then hand it off to Go Topeka to administer it the way they do their process.
I just want to make sure that anybody watching doesn't think that this is something
Yeah.
limited just to
Nope.
the City of Topeka, or it's going to be oversaw by the City of Topeka or something of that nature.
No.
This is, again, a joint Shawnee County and City of Topeka program.
Absolutely. And that's totally its intention. We're just using what we already know so nobody had to reinvent the wheel.
Now, would it be your intent then that this would go back to Go Topeka for them to develop what parameters that they would develop for that program?
Yes, all this will still be contained in the processes that already exist through JEDO and Go Topeka.
Now, had you worked out the parameters for the other two parts of this, the youth employment programs and supporting entrepreneurs?
That was not part of the motion that I made the last time. I only isolated these dollars for the $575,000 or $600,000, whatever it was.
Just want to make sure we're just touching on
Yes.
what we're touching on tonight.
Yeah. So with that, I guess I would make an official motion to move those dollars only, not the rest of them, that originally intended into the into a site prep development fund to be continued developed by Go Topeka. Or JEDO, or however you want me to, however someone wants me to say that motion, you tell me and we'll make it.
Mr. Mayor, can I make one clarification? On the screen, this was our draft in September, so there is a difference here. It says 600,000 for building rehab, but what was actually in the budget is 575, which is what's correct on the memo tonight.
Okay. Thought maybe we found some more money. You can dream, we can dream.
So we have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second from Deputy Mayor Kell. Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I was involved in those conversations. I just want to make sure, maybe just for the record, if the terminology is okay, that we're not, the conversation has included not just site preparation or studies, but also structures. So that, also the discussion was in LMI areas. So I just want there to be clarity in terms of what we're even generally approving for folks to move forward. There were all sorts of examples discussed in the work sessions, which could be, a big area that needed demolished for redeveloped for commercial use. There are also some suggestions for, there's a property in one of my neighborhoods where they need to demo a property to redevelop some affordable housing. There also was discussion of both commercial spaces and a neighborhood space that could be redeveloped for businesses. So obviously, that, to Spencer's point, some sort of a checklist that's either appropriate to each type of project or that will work for all of them needs to be developed, and there needs to be some approval at the JEDO level to move forward. But when it just said site prep, we've talked a little bit about it even today, it concerned me that there might be a sense that it didn't include structures, and I think that's important. Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor,
Commissioner Cook.
just a question, maybe directing this back to Spencer. Spencer, you were working on this. If a developer says, I'm working on my development program, and I just got a request from the city of Topeka to put $400,000 into a streetlight, is that going to fall under the redevelopment?
So I wouldn't think so, but I will go back to the first have to meet the qualifiers, which are the things we use for things like TIFs, CIDs, whatever those are, pulled in. So they still have to go through that process, and then they still have to go through the process Go Topeka has outlined and get the approval of those folks to even have that considered. My guess is if it's not in the right area, it wouldn't qualify, because the goal is to get these into those distressed communities. So if that's one of them, great, but and it's also the goal is to make sure that they are what we call more of a small or mid-sized developer who are underserved by some of those programs. I have a feeling those will be part of the criteria. So again, we don't know who the developer is in this hypothetical, but that one to me would probably be a bigger stretch for them to get through that process and qualify. But yeah.
Again, trying to think through what types of things we're getting ourselves into, because this is realistically a whole new program that we've not entertained or done before. We did have some programs specifically for redevelopment of specific properties, and that was a specific program for specific properties, and it has since expired. But this is something completely new. And so in your contemplation, if Commissioner Rippon had a constituent in Rossville that wanted to do a commercial development but needed to have demolition, and it was in a low to moderate income of Rossville, then it would meet those qualifications.
It could, yeah, and then it would, but again, it's still going to have to go through the process of whatever those, pre-qualifiers and whatever criteria has been developed by Go Topeka. Yep.
Okay.
And again, it's only $575,000, so, I think the goal, as we talked about, doesn't mean they're not disqualified, but I think the goal is to make it go at least to more than, say, one project that could take the whole money for one development. But again, that's why we have a process for Go Topeka.
Is there anticipation that if it's not used in that year, that it would roll over or grow or accumulate, or is it just going to be capped at the 575 per year?
Well, it's just a one-time fund, so it's, so if there's, I mean, if the money's not used, never say that, I shouldn't say this, but based on our conversations and the types of requests that they get, I don't think there will be any money left. I mean, I think that there is a need for this, which is why we chose this kind of operation, because of feedback they've gotten throughout the county at Go Topeka. But I think at that point, then that's a policy decision for us at the end of the year, for this board to say, do we want to roll it over or do we want to put it into something else?
Now, in the examples I've given examples of businesses, but I think Councilwoman Hiller was talking about infill housing. Housing is not necessarily a business, it can be, but I mean, that may be something completely different. Are you opening it up to anything for redevelopment?
If I can answer, and part of the conversation at first was, helping small businesses and entrepreneur development as well through everything we do with Go Topeka, but in this case as well. And so the ones that I know of, the one project that I'm aware of is where there's I don't even know if it's set up as a for-profit or a nonprofit or a church, but they've been developing housing, and there's about a quarter block where what they'd like to do is raise a building and build something new with appropriate programs. And so that cost of the demo to get that site ready was a barrier for them. At least to have a project like that considered in the middle of a neighborhood for redevelopment. We're talking about a lot of infill with the land bank and so on. There are a lot of individuals that might or might not incorporate as small businesses that are willing to do that infill redevelopment for us in neighborhoods. And so to have that as at least an opportunity, I would, in my view, being that developer is a business, however it is legally chartered. And so to do that kind of thing, as well as to go into perhaps a commercial space or whatever that needs to be revitalized and activated, that any of those when we...
I guess my concern is, Mr. Mayor, just I would need to see more parameters and maybe more of a more definite resolution as to what we're going to use and how we're going to allocate the $575,000. I'm not necessarily saying I'm opposed to your proposal. I just need to see more as to how we're going to administer this. I don't want to just throw this to Go Topeka and say good luck, and then when they don't meet what your expectation or my expectation was, we call it a failure. And so, because we never really, as the governing board, we didn't set the parameters. And so I think that's our job, is to ask them to come back with maybe a better working operation as to how that would be administered.
Councilman?
Two things. I will just say, and I tried very hard, to your original point, Commissioner Cook, I don't know all the needs in the rest of the county, right? And so as we developed this, we did try very hard to say what the needs I have in Topeka may be very different than Auburn, St. Mary's, right? And so Go Topeka knows that. So that's why we lean on them, because they have a more global perspective of that. To your point, I'm fine with that. If there's a way we could split it down the middle and at least conceptually say we're okay for now putting this money aside for this, but not until we've established it. Because again, I want to go back to, I don't want to put everybody through all the work. We may still not like it, but if it's not even conceptually an idea we want to pursue, there's no reason to do it. But if we're good with that, at least give them the idea that we're glad, we want them to do the work and we're moving forward.
Again, I'd like this to be a countywide program. So.
Councilman Banks?
I am a little bit confused on a qualifying number that would be considered a small business. Is it 10 people, 500 people?
2 people?
For the purposes of this discussion, I don't know that we have even, that our intent was to use small business as a qualifier for this program, to utilize this program. But to answer your question, with our small business incentives, it's 99 employees or less. However, the Small Business Administration uses 500 employees or less. So, but for our purposes, we felt like under 100 was more appropriate. When we talk about small business programs, again, this program, it was not our intent that it would be just catered towards small businesses.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cook, Commissioner Cook? You have more?
No, I don't have anything more to add. Thank you.
Any further discussion before we vote?
Well, I mean,
Councilman Duncan?
I don't want to leave a motion on the floor that people aren't happy with. When's our next meeting? I honestly haven't looked. Is it
What?
May?
May.
February, March, April, May. Okay.
And I would feel better if, I mean, I think you have a feel from the board. We're not saying, I don't hear anybody saying, this is a horrible idea, go away. But from my own perspective as a voting member, I would want to see a better breakdown for what meets the qualifications, how are we going to administer it. Again, making sure that it is applicable to not just one area, and that being low to moderate income of Topeka, but also could Barrington, could Dover, could Willard, could Rossville, Silver Lake, Auburn, Tecumseh, any of those areas also qualify if they had needs. So,
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Mays?
I think a statement was made earlier that they didn't go into the details of this because they wanted to see what the support was.
right.
There was also another comment made that, perhaps we change the allocation and then maybe put some kind of a caveat on there that we don't actually allocate any of the funding, disperse any of the funding until these details have been set and approved. So, I mean, I probably feel pretty comfortable doing that.
Can we make that the substitute motion for the motion on the table?
Yeah, I would make that substitute motion if you're all right with it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And is the second, you okay? There.
Yeah. Would you second? Okay. I like that because I think it gets us moving, but at the same time, maybe gives us some pause or some room to consider the details. I want to make sure that the public understands what we're voting on. So Brenda, if you could repeat.
It was a substitute motion to go ahead and allocate the funds or set the funds aside for this program, and don't allocate any funding until the parameters and stipulations have been set by the board.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you for your vote. Move on to presentations.
We have the 2024 Growth Organization of Topeka fourth quarter report.
Good evening. I'm happy to be before you on this balmy day as opposed to the regularly scheduled day when it was quite blustery outside. I want to introduce to you this evening Go Topeka's current board chair. So I think we started doing this last year, and I think it's helpful for you to have a face with a name. You all probably know him, but just to know that the chairman of the Go Topeka board is Neil Spencer, owner of Ernest Spencer Metals, and he's plugged in with us quite frequently and involved in all these discussions that we bring to you all, plus some. So would like to give Neil a couple minutes at the podium to address you.
Okay, thank you. Neil, good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a lot to say, but I appreciate being here and appreciate the honor to serve as chairman for Go Topeka. I appreciate the programs and the things that we do, the transparency and especially the economic development that we're doing for the city. So I look forward to working with Molly and Matt, the team, and everybody here to continue those initiatives and to support the city and the county the best that we can. So I appreciate everybody and the opportunities. I know many of you in this room already, that's true, but I'm glad to have the opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, now I'll dive in. We'll try to be brief because you all do have the printed quarterly report in front of you that's pretty hot off the press. As always, we've got this dashboard I wanted to share with you all. Really covers all of the programs and projects that we talk with you about, but it's the year-to-date numbers for 2024. So you'll see 602 new jobs that you all were involved in investing in. The retained jobs is very high. We had some companies that are existing businesses, and we count those retained jobs because sometimes if companies don't have the opportunity to expand where they are, their whole operation could be vulnerable to moving. So we do think it's valuable to talk about the jobs that we do have currently that support existing operations. 790 training investment, I just want to dig into these a little bit so you understand, is the number of people that have been impacted by our training programs. And then the big number at the bottom there, 138 million in capital investment, is the total investment from all these projects. Go to the next slide real quick, just because I wanted to dive into the 4 main projects that you approved in 2024 individually, equaled 555 new jobs, and the average wage of all those projects was just over 70,000. We're really proud of that number. We have recently raised the floor of jobs that we do incentivize to 50,000, and we think that's a healthy thing to do every once in a while to make sure that we're continuing to grow the wealth and prosperity of our community. So I would stand for any questions, or I will keep it rolling and let the next team member come up.
Seeing none, thank you, Molly.
Okay. Hello. Just wanted to give an active project pipeline overview. Right now, there are 24 in our active pipeline, which means that they have come from KCADC, which is the Kansas City Area Development Council, or the State Department of Commerce. Usually those RFPs come through us. So these are all just new business attraction. And so as you can see, the majority of those are manufacturing, a couple in aviation, and then data centers and tech still really showing a presence. Just as a recap, in 2024, we had 45 projects total that came in through the year. So every year it's increasing. Usually I look at any projects that we're not able to submit to see if there's any, patterns. The majority of those, there were 15 that we couldn't submit for. A majority is large part in buildings that they were looking for, minimum of 250,000 square feet up to 1 million square feet. Also, the ceiling height is something that we really don't have. Usually it's starting at a minimum of 20-foot ceilings going up to, I think the largest that we had was 50 feet. So just don't have those and can't submit for those. In terms of any new projects or BRE, the business retention and expansion, nothing to announce today. So my presentation's a little shorter. Usually we, have projects to announce. We are working closely with meeting existing companies, talking about how we can help support their growth. And see if we have any resources for them to continue expanding here in Topeka. But no new projects yet, soon to come.
Thank you.
Any questions, or I'll pass it on.
Appreciate it. Any questions? Thank you.
So I feel kind of bad because Stephanie Moran is actually at a Research Parks training this week, and so I get to share some fun stuff with you all on her behalf. So there's a lot of slides, but they're mostly visual. So we have landed on a name for the Innovation Center, and we've chosen Link Innovation Labs. So here's a logo just to kind of give you a peek at what that'll look like. And then I want to walk through a few slides that just give you an idea of the concepts and the renderings that we are working through with the design team, and then I'll show the timeline at the end and explain where we are in the construction timeline. So most of you have seen some version of a floor plan, and I will not walk through all the details of this, but there have been some material changes. One is that we have decided to, instead of having the office area at the front, right around here where the mouse is, this whole section had been at the front. We decided to move the labs front facing because this area here will be open to the public, and we are going to have some windows in this lab so that you could peek in there and kind of see what do these things look like? What are they doing in there? And so obviously there won't be able to be proprietary work being done in that lab, but there are a lot of opportunities to showcase some things that the public could just see and kind of get excited about. So we moved that. We also have a concept of a cafe here in the entryway, and there currently is a wall that divides where the cafe area and the building lobby are, and plans are to remove that so that this is a larger entryway and can be a kind of a public gathering space as well. Those are probably the two main changes. I will click through to show you the fun stuff now. So this is looking out the door. So if you walk out that door, you would walk out onto 6th Street. right across from I guess it's an Amoco now, I think, the gas station. This is a concept of what the entryway would look like, kind of from another view. Obviously, the front doors are on the right side of the screen there. Peeking in a little further, you can see the counter for a potential cafe area so that folks could enjoy refreshments and the public could come in and just plop down there as well. And there's those windows you can see with the Link Innovation Labs on the front so that you could peek in and get a feel for what's going on inside those labs. Another view behind that cafe area is where the main conference room is, so it would have visibility from the street side as well. This is a peek into what a lab would look like. So if those of you around the table haven't been in one before, this is kind of what a modern lab looks like. It's not real exciting. It's not supposed to be. We're not going to do all kind of crazy colors that would need to be, updated more frequently. But we'll have the modern amenities and the casework that's in the middle. We're trying to figure out if we can afford making sure that they're mobile, but they will be somewhat mobile, and so that they can be reconfigured depending on the lab user that's in there. And here's just a look at a concept for the co-working space with the offices around the perimeter that's in the back area of the facility. A peek into what the pitch room would look like. It's very dark. We want it to be dark on purpose when people are giving presentations. I mean, that's the kind of feel that they're used to and that we think would work well with the AV and things. But this would be right when you walk in. There is opportunity for kind of networking space. And then as you make your way in and are in the opposite corner, you can see that there would be room for seating with just a small stage and screen there for not only pitches, but companies that want to use that as a training space, or you want to have a media conference or some sort of gathering that anyone wants to rent that facility for. That is optional as well. Another view. And then this is our timeline. So the line right there in February is where we are. So we are closing in on final designs, getting ready to roll out construction documents. So we're on time as planned, and have been just really rocking and rolling over there. And nothing really material to report at this point in time, except for that on time things are moving forward, and we're excited about the progress that we made so far. So I would stand for questions here, or we've got another portion that I'll roll to.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Cook?
we had discussion last time about our lease contract, terms of the lease, and then also what lease terms we would have with the labs. Have we worked any more defining what the lease is going to be with AIM Investments? And
Yeah, so, our lease term is still what you all have approved. And then we have worked a little bit more on parking. We know that there are 4 dedicated spots behind the building. There's parking in the town site garage. And then got some new information with the Polk Quincy construction. There's going to be some movement of the parking there on the east side of the building. And so I think the plans are that with KDOT's renderings, there would be some new angled parking right up against the building there. So that's really helpful as well for people that want to drop in and aren't tenants of the space. We have we've solidified the construction contract, and then we have not signed the lease yet. We have talked with legal, mostly with Rich, since he was JEDO's attorney last year, and are ready to sign that agreement with AIM, but we would bring that back and make sure that the JEDO chair would sign that with us, since it's a longer term agreement. So it's ready, almost ready to go, but not quite ready to be inked yet. So we will get dual signatures from JEDO chair when we do that.
thank you.
Further questions? Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor.
Regarding the property at 7th and Kansas, is there at this point absolutely no relationship or obligation regarding anything there?
So the stub lease that we have with them expires this week. So formally, there won't be any obligation with them there. However, there are, they're still a downtown building owner. So we still very much want highest and best use of those properties. And we have turned the page and kind of drawn a line in the sand with that developer. and come alongside them and brainstormed with what potential future uses could be. And they do have some concepts I can't share, but they have some other ideas for how to potentially rebuild that space into something that would be great for the community.
Thank you.
Further questions? Okay, thank you, Molly.
Good evening. Providing some updates on our small business incentives and programming. So first is our community health map. So we overlaid our incentive awardee locations. So you can see that we do have a wide variety of locations. We're hitting the different areas. When we take into consideration, we do look at those high risk or intensive care neighborhoods and kind of put them at the top of our list for priority. They are not guaranteed award. They go through the same critique, but we do kind of factor in the fact that we want to support those neighborhoods if the project would provide redevelopment or offer new services and such. But it does, you can see that we have awarded across the city through the last year. So this is 2024 in total. Overlaid over your districts, you can see that there are projects in every one. And if you would like more information detailed on what projects, whom they received, I can provide that to you upon request. And you should have numbers in the report, so we didn't include the whole graph as we normally would. But so here's a breakdown of some of the projects. You can see construction and renovation and equipment are some of our highest receiving projects. Some examples of our larger projects, we did $15K towards Bimini for lab equipment and also $15K to construction. So they were renovating their warehouse and providing new equipment for new services. J. Warren Co. was they installed traffic lights, so they needed new equipment to more effectively do that. Construction, Vaughn Pediatric Dentistry was one of our recipients. They were expanding services so that they could take in more clients. Those are just some of our examples of those projects. And then some of approved amounts by industry. So you can see that accommodation and food services was our highest one this year. And so that would include To the Stars Play Cafe. That's a new service for young children, and it offers the cafe area for the parents. We have Joy Lake Coffee Roasters was included in that. Sky Restaurant, Spot Nutrition. Again, just a few examples, but there were many more. And then, so as we mentioned earlier, we define small business by 99 employees or less, but I wanted to point out that the 2024 average was 2.5 employees per company. Again, average that received awards through us in that year. So we are doing the survey intake. So when somebody is approved for a project, they are starting out with a 3-month or a 90-day performance period, and then they are ideally completing their project within that timeline. We send out post surveys 15 months after approval, so that would ideally be about a year after the project has been completed for them. Obviously, not everybody is exactly within that time frame, but we're hoping that's kind of the average. But so of those surveys that we have received so far, 23, it was we're still early in this program. We have them out, they go out weekly, so we're getting those responses. I also have an intern helping reach out to those companies to ensure that we're getting responses. And it's being communicated that that is a requirement in receiving funds now, so that we make sure that we are receiving that. But of 23 surveys received, we've, of those, it was 103 awarded, over 2 million reported as total investment, 24% reported a percentage of revenue growth, 10 projects reported increase in capacity, 9 projects reported increase in products or services offered, 54 net new jobs were reported. Some keywords you can see on the side and some comments about how it helped reach their schools. Overwhelmingly positive. The program is helping. What I didn't put on here, because you don't always want to tout the bad things, we did have 2 companies that have received funds in the last couple of years report closure. But that opens the door to have the conversation with them as to what the struggles were, what we could do to support them better had we spoken to them sooner. So while it's unfortunate that that does happen, it does happen occasionally, but we can continue the conversations with them. Other things going on, Business Concierge office is open and running down there. It's at 715 Kansas, right next to our visitor center. It is staffed mainly by 4 Washburn employees, and our staff, also Washburn SBDC, covers some hours, but it is a place where if anybody is looking for resources to open a business or support their small business or get connected, they can walk in without an appointment, speak to someone and receive those services, and then move on to making an appointment with those that they are needed. Small Business Awards is kicking off for nominations, so if you haven't, please nominate your favorite small businesses. Those are open till Friday, and then we'll move on to the next phase of that program. And the Small Business Council is still meeting bi-monthly and then offering trainings in those off months. We're also developing smaller groupthink conversations that we can offer in the Business Concierge to kind of engage both those programs together. So movement is happening. Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but the slide that you had that showed the business locations by council districts,
Yes.
yeah. If you could provide that to my office and with the names of those businesses, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any? Pardon?
Copy the rest of us.
Well, that's what I figured. Send it out to everybody then.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? I've got a couple of things to report on today. The first item is something that we started last year, the workforce report. We call this the 2024 workforce report because most of the numbers in there are as of the end of 2024. We had a few changes to this recently, so I was not able to provide a printed copy to you all tonight, but I will email out the electronic version to you tomorrow, and if you would like a printed copy, I can get one to you next week. I am going to call out a few things. Oh, I thought there was a link on here. Let's see. Okay. I'm just going to call out a few things in here. I thought I was going to be able to pull this up on the screen. We have some numbers that have increased significantly from last year. So our total working age population in Shawnee County in 2024 was 142,447 people. That's an increase of 3,500 people that have reached working age, which is awesome. Our labor force participation has increased by over 3,000 people since 2023, which is also pretty amazing. Labor force participation is different from people who are actually working. It includes those who are on unemployment or who are actively seeking employment. So we have 3,000 more people than 2023. We have 2,000 more people that are currently employed over 2023. We have 5,000 more jobs in Shawnee County than we had in 2023. And our average wages have increased by $7,500. They're now $63,463 for an average wage. That is pretty awesome. A couple other things I'll point out, and again, you'll have this. We are starting to update our largest employers list. It's something that's been on the Go Topeka website, the Choose Topeka website for a number of years. It has not been updated in a while. So we've been reaching out to companies to get their employee count and are going to be listing the top 50 in Shawnee County on our website. We currently have 40, and then as we gather more information, we'll continue to add those. But those will be listed in this workforce report. There's also a report on the inflow and outflow, so the number of people who commute in and out of the county for work. We have a little over 60,000 people who currently live and work in Shawnee County, which is a really great number to have. But we still have 40,000 people who commute into the city or into the county for work. And we have about 20,000 who commute out of the community. And then finally, something I just thought was really interesting was 12% of households in Shawnee County speak languages other than English in their homes. I think that's pretty awesome just to show the diversity in the community, but also kind of showcases, if you're aware, that Washburn Tech has ESL classes, and in the last year, they've had more enrollees in the ESL classes than ever before, with 200 students going through the program. So I will get that all out to you tomorrow. Any questions on that?
Questions, Tina?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Couldn't see you back there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
There was this.
I'm just a little curious as to, do you have any data indicating why people are leaving our city? Anything?
I don't have anything right now. I'm sure that's something we can try to gather. We could talk to our, to Bob Ross and ask him to try to gather that information. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Heather? Yes.
Thank you. I've got a question, and it's one that I've pondered for a while, and I know others have asked. So I'll just ask you whether you all have done any research on this. And that is that, on the one hand, we talk a lot about how many people who don't live here work here, as if that's a bad thing. But we're the center of a metropolitan area where having people from a 50-mile radius, let's say, come here every day, work, and go home to their small town or their farm or whatever is really natural. And so have we ever looked at that with a more of a positive light to see who those folks are and maybe celebrate that?
Yeah, I don't think it's something that we really think of negatively because, as you said, they are commuting here. They're likely spending money here, you know, whether they're stopping by the grocery store on their way home or they're buying lunch at one of our local restaurants or walking downtown and stepping into a shop on their lunch. So they're still generating revenue for Topeka, whether or not they live here.
I just wondered, because actually that's just natural and normal to be the bigger community in the middle of a big area, and I haven't heard us address that as in a positive way.
You know, and I think that it's something we could dig deeper into as far as where they're coming from. How many are coming from those smaller towns that don't have as many job opportunities versus coming from Kansas City or Lawrence or even Manhattan.
Molly's creeping up on you.
Okay.
We do have a lot of that data, and it is a story that we love to tell when we're talking to companies that are looking at coming here, because they know they don't see those boundaries. They see a drive time. And so we're looking at our labor shed analysis and sharing that with them and saying, you can tap into this many people in our labor shed area, and that's what your workforce looks like. So we do have that info. We just don't have it with us tonight, but we can share it with you.
Good. Well, thank you. I just wanted to raise that issue because I don't hear it very often, yet it's something that's natural, and one could argue, of course we want them all to live here, but if they're living on the family farm or in the small town by choice, then it's okay. Thanks. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions on that one? No. Okay. Our next thing, this is something that was in the works before I was even with Go Topeka, and Councilwoman Hiller was a part of this project. I'm going to go ahead and switch here. So it's our workforce directory. In the past, this was called workforce inventory, and I believe the objective of this page was for people who are facing certain barriers to employment. They could be able to go out here, or if they go into an agency and they need services because they have been involved in the criminal justice system, and they need to work with an organization who is comfortable working with them, who has the connections for them, and it's a way for them to find what agencies they should be working with. Did I get that pretty much right? Okay. So we had something out on our website for a number of years. We quickly learned it wasn't the most user-friendly, and a lot of the information was outdated. So we have been working on gathering updated information for different employment agencies, but then also organizations that help people with career development. So it's still a work in progress, but we're happy to say that it is live. So on this page, and again, I don't have a link to go out to it, but if you see across the top of the page where it says I am, a person can click on that drop down and they can find, you know, a number of things. They are a non-English speaker. They are, they have a criminal history. They have a disability. They're youth with substance abuse issues. A number of things. It's a long list. So they can choose what barrier they are facing. They can choose their language and then looking for assistance with. It could be writing a resume. It could be a job search. a large number of things. So then, once they put in their criteria, the organizations that offer those services will pop up. Each one of those is a live link to an information page. And on this page, it'll bring it right up, the person to contact, the address, phone number, email address, their website, all of their information. And then as you scroll down on that page, it talks about the services that they offer, the target demographics. So we are planning to promote this page on our social media channels, but then also all the organizations that are featured here will be able to access it as well. So if someone walks through their door that they, for whatever reason, don't have the capability to serve, they can go out and say, well, you can go over to this organization and maybe even give a call to make the referral or to help set up an appointment. So we're very excited about this. Again, it's going to continue to be a work in progress as we gather information from different organizations, but very excited about that. So, yes.
Deputy Mayor.
Now, I noticed you had the website up there, the mobile site, which I think a lot more people use mobile than they do actual websites anymore. The only issue I have with it is there's a click, in essence, you have to get a click down menu to get the click down things. So if you're not familiar with it going, you're kind of, it's not just right there.
Okay.
So if I didn't know what you said right then, I looked at it, I'm like, okay, it's a website for helping me out. And then I was like, well, okay, the IM must be under this click down, which.
Is it working the way it should?
Well, it is, but I'm saying it's almost hidden in the aspect of on the mobile side of things.
Okay.
Underneath another tab. So I would probably maybe try to get that on the mobile side of things to just be there without being under another tab.
Okay, I appreciate that feedback. I'll pass it along.
And then on that aspect, on the IM, was there any thought to adding veteran services?
Yes, it should be on the list. If it's not, we'll get it added.
Okay, I'm not seeing that. So,
Okay,
all right, thank you.
thank you.
Trina, I like this. I think it's really good. Beyond, I guess, your webpage and so forth, how is that put out to the public so that they know that's available? Schools, anything like that?
Yes, we'll definitely be passing it along to all of the school districts, to Washburn University, and again, we'll have it on our social channels and all of these organizations that are already on the website and those that we're still gathering information from as well.
I don't know, Dan's in the room. Is this something that we could put in our loop that we play at City Hall for information that would be available, people visiting City Hall and so forth?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, it's a good idea, I like that. Okay, thank you very much, Trina.
Thank you.
And that's it for us for tonight, but if there's anything that you wanted to circle back to, we're all here if you have any questions.
Okay, any questions, any follow-up? Thank you, Molly, appreciate it. Okay. Next on the agenda is for the clerk to remind us all of what our meeting dates are for the rest of the year.
Yep. So next three meeting dates we have on May 14th, September 10, and December 10.
Okay. Thank you. We have one person signed up for public comment, Mr. Henry McClure. Mr. McClure.
JEDO Chairman, don't sign that lease. I'd like to thank my county commissioner tonight. He really brought up some good points about awareness and about process and transparency. Really, it's an awareness that maybe some of this stuff is over the pay grade. I'm telling you, that deal, the link, that AT&T building that with AIM, that's worse than the hotel. It's going to be a lot worse than the hotel because what it has done for me as a citizen who can't qualify to get with the program I heard tonight, you would have put in my sewer for people Pizza Hut that took 2 years to get in. 2 years to get a Pizza Hut permit in this community. So you'll find that what you've done is you've just now done exactly what Chuck Wright said. He goes, Henry, this is back when I was on Yes Topeka. This thing's just going to turn into a slush fund. Look, it's an NGO. Go Topeka, the chamber, go Topeka. We've got non-elected officials making decisions that you should be making here personally. Sorry, got distracted. I could feel some energy. Look at this. You've got a board member that says $575,000, just like nothing. I guess that's the same reason why it's so hot in this room, and you've got the windows open on the side. But someday, $5 million is going to mean something to you guys, and all you've got to do is incentivize or just make it easier to do retail development. We need sales tax in this community. That's all you got to do. We can, as developers, we can do it with TIF, CID, and RHID. And the MSA, my city council person's right. We've got a bigger area, but people don't want to come here because of the crime. People don't want to come here because they see what goes on in this community. There's selective tax collection in this town. JEDO really has outlived its usefulness to this community. You've had a decade to get all the taxes on Lawrence Bay, yet you've not done it. But I'm telling you, that AT&T building, you're trying to build a market that doesn't exist. All you have to do is support retail development. You're going to get the sales tax and figure out how to do that. But if you zero out the $5 million and just put it into our roads, I'll tell you what my clients tell me, it's the property crime that takes place in this town. One of your other associates there was asking the question. I'm lucky, just an hour away is one of the better markets in the community to be a real estate broker. I go back 6 generations in Kansas City, Kansas. But I pray for you guys. I literally do. But we got to make changes in this community. And today's the day. I hope the changes that are happening on a national level will reflect in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no other persons are signed for public comment. Is there any other business to come before this body? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.